I made these up the other day. This is a chaos blank made from all SpectraPly. Now this was a trip to make. I started with 68 blanks and ended with 24. So there's a lot of waste when you make the chaos blanks, but I think they look amazing and I cannot wait to turn this one and see what it looks like on a kit. Now for the kit, I have not turned one of these in a long time. This used to be my go-to kit. This is a slimline, copper slimline, and I thought it might look kind of cool, you know, with the different colors of the SpectraPly. So I've got one of the tubes out, and I'm just going to kind of roughly find the center of the blank and just make sure that I have enough room on both sides, and I do. And let me go ahead and do a crosshatch. I'm going to go over to the bandsaw. I'm going to cut this in half, and then I'll go ahead and drill both halves with a 7mm bit. I've got my blanks ready to glue up. The tubes have been scratched up, and I've gone ahead and put a little Play-Doh in each end to keep the epoxy out. I've got equal parts of hardener and resin here on my tape. We're going to go ahead and mix it up and start spreading it on the tubes. Make sure you enter the blank at the end you marked. Otherwise, if you put it in this end and you don't bring it all the way out to the edge, these aren't going to line up really well. So by putting it, always putting the tube in the end of the blank that you marked, you know these two actually will line up. Get some of this excess epoxy off of here. Make sure we spread just a hair around the remainder of the tube. We're just going to drop it just below the surface. Like I said, doing that is going to give us the best match when we put these two blanks together. Since this blank will eventually be mated to a slimline pin kit, I decided to go ahead and turn it on a mandrel as opposed to turning between centers. And the primary reason for doing that is I want to turn both halves at the same time so that I can make sure I have decent symmetry between them. You can see that I also took very good care to ensure that the blanks mate in the middle at the cut line where I split the blank in half. My skew left such a nice finish on the blank that I'm going to start sanding at 220 grit. I'm using a acrylic blank to give me a nice flat sanding surface so that I make sure the blank is perfectly smooth from end to end. I'm going to go ahead and shut the camera off, and I'll finish sanding this blank, and we'll come back and look at it when it's ready for me to apply a CA finish. I've sanded the blank down to 400 grit. I don't see any scratches left in the blank. It looks pretty darn good to me. I'm going to go ahead and get it off of the turning bushings. We'll get it onto our non-stick bushings, clean it up with some denatured alcohol, and start applying a CA finish. Got the first coat of CA going on now. I just finished applying CA to the blanks. I put 5 coats of thin and 5 coats of medium, and I just love how thick it looks. It just took so well today, and it just looks like there's so much depth to the CA. It just looks like it's, you know, super thick. Well, guys, we had a little bit of an issue here. Nothing too crazy. I think we'll be able to figure it out. The first blank slid right off of the mandrel. The second blank, there must have been a little gap between the bushing and the blank, and CA has gotten down into, or down under the blank and gotten onto my mandrel, and this blank is actually CA'd to the mandrel. I don't exactly know what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to try to maybe grab it with my disassembly pliers and just kind of jiggle it a little bit to see if I can loosen it up and get it off of the mandrel. Got the pliers here. I'm going to go ahead and put them on. Just kind of get a good grip. I'm just adjusting them in. I don't want them too tight because, okay, she's turning now. Look at that. I think this might actually work. I didn't want to get the pliers too tight because the CA is probably still soft. I can actually see the mandrel turning and the blank moving down the mandrel. It's just so much CA in there that it's not going to move easily. That's okay, though. We'll get her cleaned up and we'll make it work. I guess some CA must have gotten between the brass tube and the mandrel. There we go. There it is right there. So it was this end of the blank that the CA got onto the mandrel. This is not a problem. This is actually good because now it's going to come right off nice and easy. And what I'll do is I'll fire the lathe back up, and I'll take a little bit of sandpaper and I'll clean this little rough area off of the mandrel, and we should be good to go for future pins. I brought my mandrel saver up to support the mandrel. I've got some 150 grit sandpaper. I'm just going to basically sand this smooth. Use a little bit of paper towel here to kind of clean up some of that black. That's just the sanding dust. We'll get the rest of it wiped off. The mandrel is nice and smooth. Look how easy that bushing slides up and down that mandrel. Periodically with the mandrel, you want to go ahead and take some sandpaper and just clean it off because it does get nicked and it does get CA on it. But you can see just how smooth it is now, and we're ready. We're back in business. When I use my nonstick bushings to finish blanks, I always basically wipe right off of the blank onto the bushing so that I don't have a bulge of CA at the end of my blank. What we do is we just simply pop these loose, and I'm going to bring these blanks over to the camera, and you can see there's a little excess CA on the end of the blank. I call that a fingernail. You might be tempted to break that off. I don't recommend doing that because it can chip the CA on the end of the blank. What I like to do is bring these over to my disc sander, and we're going to go ahead and turn the sander on, and we're just going to kiss these blanks against the sander and take them right back down to the tube. Got the blank cleaned up, back on the lathe with the turning bushings, and I'm ready to begin micromeshing. You don't want to get too aggressive with your first couple of pads because if you do, you'll just tear right through that initial CA finish. That's about all I give it, just a couple of seconds. I move on. As I get over halfway, let's say pad 6 or 7, I'll start getting a little more aggressive and leaving it on the blank a little longer because I really want to polish out those fine scratches. But it doesn't take much to clean the finish up when you're doing CA. Once again, just applying that wax with my fingers. There is no abrasion in your fingers, so you're not going to put any scratches. You're not going to introduce any new scratches to your blank, which is what you want. You don't want to use a paper towel because it has a grit, and I don't know what that grit is. It may be 40,000, who knows. but you don't want to introduce that to the blank and put scratches in your blank. I've got the wax applied, and now what I'm doing is just moving back and forth, working the wax into the blank and waiting for it to kind of tug on the skin. Like this blank here is starting to tug on my fingers. I can tell that the wax is ready to be buffed off. And this blank is now starting to. All right, we're in great shape. I'm going to get these transferred to a holding mandrel, and we'll polish them up. Now take a look at that. Oh, whoops, you know what? I just realized that I did not zoom out, and you guys just watched the whole thing up close, and all you saw was this wheel. But take a look at that blank. Let me turn that off. Take a look at that blank. Apologize for the video on that, but you can see that buffing this blank really did the trick. Let's head over to the assembly table, and let's get this assembled into the kit. I've got my blanks and all of my parts laid out and ready to assemble. And if we pull the two blanks, you'll notice right there is where they line up. So we're keeping that aligned as well. The nib will go in here, transmission, and then the cap will go into the back of this one. That'll keep everything pointing in the proper direction. Go ahead and we'll slide this in here like this. Now with slimline pins, you have to be really careful to make sure you square the end at the ram. And I have a little piece of rubber here to protect it because I don't have a bushing like on a Sierra. I would use one of my turning bushings to help keep from damaging the shoulder of this blank. And I don't have that luxury. Let me tighten that up a little bit. So we're just going to try to keep it square and just go real nice and easy. Oh yeah, we got a nice fit there. Let me bring that over to the camera. Take a look at that. We got a nice fit. I like that. All right, next up, let's do our transmission. Get it in here, get it started. Once again, we're gonna have to be really careful to keep things straight. We don't want to damage our transmission. It's been a long time since I've turned a slimline. I'm just gonna start pushing it in to the blank. I'm gonna take it up to the brass. I know there's a little line there, but I'll be honest with you, I always just take it to the brass to start with. Normally I'll end up taking it all the way down to the line, but I like to be cautious and I like to test. Let me get the little nib off the end of my ink refill here. All right, now let's test. We'll put this into, look at that. I stopped and take a look at that. It is absolutely perfect. Now, what you gotta be careful of is sometimes you'll accidentally shorten these tubes, and evidently I might have got a little too aggressive with my sanding because my front blank appears to be a little shorter than it should be, but that is perfect. So don't just assume you press it into that line. Doing that can cause you some issues. I've got perfect extension of the refill. I still have a little bit of that rubber tip on there. Once I get this pin put together, I'll get a piece of paper and we'll do some test writing with the pin just to make sure we got it all off the ball. All right, I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead and slide our trim ring on here. Okay, lay it aside here. Let's put the cap through the clip. And remember, this is the center, so we'll just go back here on the back of the pin. You know what I'm gonna do? See that blue area right there? I'm gonna try to lay the clip right down that blue area because I get the most, or I get the nicest angle of a blank when I do that. You always want to look for where you want to put your clip. You want to see a majority of the blank, more blank and less of the boring areas. And let me just line that up. Let's see, where was it at? There it is, right there. So what I'm going to do is partially press this cap in. There we go. We're going to get it almost all the way in. And now I'm going to hold the clip in place. And we're going to press this cap the rest of the way in, nice and tight. Okay, there you go. I'll bring it up to the camera and show it to you. Look at that. We got a beautiful fit right there. That's absolutely gorgeous. Let's put our pin together. Now, when your pin is closed is when everything should align. So I'm going to dial it right in. Look at that. It aligns perfectly. Just want you to have a good shot of the pin. I didn't realize it was a little blurry there. I'd really like to thank you for joining me for this video. I had a great time turning this. It's been a long time since I've turned a slimline for you guys, and I truly enjoyed it. I forgot how much fun they are to turn. I used to turn these all the time. But this is a great pen. The copper kit with the Chaos blank just looks amazing. I couldn't be happier. I would really like to thank you for joining me for this video. And I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon and have a great day.